I think it's important to remember that the United States is not a dictatorship or an authoritarian government, no matter how Donald Trump tries to make it one. And so, just because Donald Trump is mad at India doesn't mean that's the end of diplomatic relationships between India and the United States. Relationship and the bond between the two countries goes back many decades. It's always had its ups and downs, and sometimes administrations have not prioritized it, but certainly the past 4 or 5 presidents have prioritized the relationship and created ties that are really hard to unwind over even a couple of years. And certainly, Donald Trump is putting tariffs on India because I think he feels personally slighted. But at the same time, he alone will not be able to completely sever the ties. But I think what will help is if, we in Congress, as well as people in the United States who support the U.S.-India relationship, speak up and tell the president that he needs to change course. I think that kind of pressure actually does move him. It moves this administration. When he realizes he's backed into a corner, he does shift. And so that's why I don't think this is permanent, because there's just too many people who've worked really hard to strengthen the U.S.-India relationship. And
hello and welcome. I am Pranay Upadhyaya and you are watching India Today Global. President Donald Trump has made a very scathing social media post targeting India, Russia and China. Definitely, the most remarkable part of this social media post is that President Donald Trump has almost given up on his partnership and US-India ties. What does it mean? Where are we heading in terms of India-US relation? And will it be true to assess that we have lost this relationship, or there are efforts to save this relationship? How the US politicians are looking at the state of India-US affairs. I'm being joined by Suhas Subramanyam, one of the youngest politician of United States, and he is representing the 10th Congressional District of Virginia. Welcome to India Today, Suhas.
Thank you for having me.
And Suhas, my first question to you would be President Donald Trump's latest social media post, where he claims that he has lost India, Russia to the deepest, darkest China and wishes them long and prosperous future. Definitely, he's referring to the SCO summit where both these leaders were seen together. How do you see this shift? Is it a real shift or in India-US alliance, or it is President Donald Trump's frustration which he is venting out after putting 50% tariffs on India, where he failed to sway India?
I think it's important to remember that the United States is not a dictatorship or an authoritarian government, no matter how Donald Trump tries to make it one. And so, just because Donald Trump is mad at India doesn't mean that's the end of diplomatic relationships between India and the United States. Certainly in Congress, where we fund the government and fund operations, there's a strong commitment to the US-India relationship, and we're going to continue to push to strengthen it, even if Donald Trump tries to weaken it. And so I'll start there. And certainly I think Donald Trump is angry that India hasn't kissed the ring, so to speak, but India is a country that never has. But it doesn't mean we should cut diplomatic ties, right? And I think in the end, if Donald Trump wants India to work with the United States, we should find situations that are win-win, like trying to get rid of or lower these tariffs, or trying to strengthen economic and military ties.
But Suhas, you used a very strong word here. You said that President Donald Trump, US is not a dictatorship. Do you think that the way President Donald Trump is behaving, it is actually giving the indication that President Donald Trump is behaving in a fashion which is dictatorial, and he thinks that either it is my way or highway?
Well, I think certainly if the president of the United States has more say than one other singular person, but I think the problem anyone who wants to undermine the relationship has is that there's such a deep and strong commitment from Republicans and Democrats to strengthening the U.S.-India relationship that I think he'll have trouble completely cutting ties or weakening it severely. I think this is not the first time Donald Trump has gotten angry at another world leader or been, sometimes he runs hot and cold, frankly. And but in the end, the relationship continues to be strong in other ways. Right? There's still military exercises we're doing together. There's still strong economic ties. I know, many parts of the United States have a strong Indian diaspora, and
but so as you mentioned about the economic ties, he's actually, with this tariffs and 50% tariffs, he's only hitting at the economic ties. Because President Donald Trump's 50% tariff, including the 25% penalty for Indian oil purchase from Russia, to which that Indian side actually kept US and the previous Biden administration informed about that. With past, we have the defense cooperation and the ongoing Upadhyaya. You also mentioned about that. How can the United States reconcile this economic pressure with maintaining a strong military partnership, especially as India diversifies its global ties?
In the end, the relationship and the bond between the two countries goes back many decades. It's always had its ups and downs, and sometimes administrations have not prioritized it. But certainly, the past 4 or 5 presidents have prioritized the relationship and created ties that are really hard to unwind over even a couple of years. And certainly, Donald Trump is putting tariffs on India because I think he feels personally slighted. But at the same time, he alone will not be able to completely sever the ties. Certainly, this is not good for the relationship. But I think overall, we're going to be continuing to work in Congress to push to strengthen the ties.
You're absolutely right, Suhas. It is the Congress which funds the government, and even President Donald Trump has to approach Congress to fund his plan. And there seems to be a deadlock right now in Congress. But do you think what the US congressmen, the friends of India, and especially as you mentioned that there are a large number of US politicians who think this relationship with India, the strategic partnership is way more important than the interest or the mood swings of President Donald Trump. What the US politician, or especially the friends of India, are doing on the Capitol Hill?
I mean, we're continuing to do the work. We've been already working on looking at different ways to partner with India, and this is not specific to India. I mean, generally, the sentiment on Congress right now is that we want to ensure that our allies, that we strengthen our ties with all of our allies, that we're making new allies. The concern we have in Asia is the influence of China and Russia. And, with Russia and Ukraine, that's the big issue. We don't want China doing incursions into Taiwan. We don't want them questioning the sovereignty of their other neighbors. And so India is a very key partner in continuing to strengthen the ties between the 2 largest democracies in the world, and 2, being a counter against our adversaries in the United States, like China. And so I think long term, things are going to be okay. This is a road bump, certainly. This is not helpful. I oppose what the president is doing right now. I oppose these tariffs. But, Donald Trump is only one person. We have certainly on the Democratic side, there's overwhelming support for the U.S.-India relationship. It's waning on the Republican side. I'll be honest. I hear a lot from the MAGA crowd about an anti-India sentiment that whether it's H-1B visas or just people who are of Indian American origin like me, who they feel should not be in office at all. I get the comments like that. So yeah, I think on the far right, there's certainly an anti-India sentiment, but in the center right and in the left, I think there's still a strong desire to have a good relationship with India, and there's many ways we can continue to partner. The tariffs are a roadblock, you're right, but we're going to continue to speak out against them.
So, help our viewers understand what is the reason behind this anti-India sentiment in so-called the right or the MAGA bloc of United States, and as a representative, how should we, how should you be doing, and what are you doing in terms of addressing these concerns and allay the apprehensions of the Indian American community, especially those who are there on the H-1B visa or those who are the green card holders there, because there are a lot of concerns.
Yeah, I think we should all be concerned. That's why sometimes I'm puzzled by Indian Americans who wholeheartedly support Donald Trump. I wonder what their support is right now. But they were telling me that Donald Trump is a friend of India and a friend of Modi, and that we should be supporting Trump for that reason. So there's a lot of silence right now from those people. But the other thing that I try to make them understand is, visit my social media. My first post as a member of Congress, I was sworn in. I decided to be sworn in on the Bhagavad Gita, and there was thousands of comments basically saying that I should go back to where I came from, that we should not have people of Indian origin in office. That things like that. I'm not a real American, and so I understand it's clear from my name and from you can look me up on Wikipedia. My family is Indian origin, but I think some of the comments have been very ugly from the far right, and perhaps this is playing into that a little bit. So that's definitely in the background. But Donald Trump has also appointed Indian Americans to his cabinet, so I think I don't think that's his view. I think a lot of this is mostly because he wants other countries to kiss the ring, and I think he feels personally slighted by India and Modi, and but that's the extent to which I know. But the only way to explain sort of these these tariffs, because it can't just be the oil that they're buying from Russia, because Europe buys oil from Russia as well, probably more so. And it's been a policy for a while now. It's not a new policy of India purchasing Russian oil. And so the fact that the timing of having spoken to Modi and it not going well, and then the tariffs after that, fighting Russian oil seems like an excuse more so than real policy making and a real policy reason.
Absolutely, Suhas. And many people also think in India that this is not about tariffs, and especially with President Donald Trump hosting Pakistan's army chief while imposing steep tariffs of India, some see a shift in US South Asia policy here. Does this approach, pairing the economic punishment with the geopolitical favoritism, threatens the Quad unity against China, where India remains a key player, as you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely threatens the unity of the Quad. It threatens our standing. I mean, this has been a pattern in the Trump administration of really undermining our relationships with our allies across the world, while trying to still, it's Donald Trump who made overtures to Putin. It's Donald Trump who met with Putin in Alaska. And it's Donald Trump who's sort of taken his side in many instances in the Ukraine war. I think Putin now is wearing on him. He's realizing Putin is not working in good faith to end the war, and so perhaps that's part of it. But I think it's a little hypocritical what Donald Trump is doing, and I absolutely oppose his policy on this. And I think it's not smart for anyone. I look at this long term, and I think this will be a roadblock. I'm optimistic that we'll get things back on track. But I think what will help is if we in Congress, as well as people in the United States who support the U.S.-India relationship, speak up and tell the president that he needs to change course. I think that kind of pressure actually does move him. It moves this administration. When he realizes he's backed into a
Hmm.
corner, he does shift. And so that's why I don't think this is permanent, because there's just too many people who've worked really hard
Hmm.
to strengthen the US-India relationship. And long term, I'm still optimistic that we'll get things back on track.
But Suhas, what's in your opinion? Why nobody is standing up for India? Why nobody in Trump administration is speaking for India? On the other side, contrary to that, we are getting the statements of people like Peter Navarro, or even the conflicting statement by Scott Bessent, and even a seasoned politician like Marco Rubio is not giving those kind of statement which is required to save the strategic partnership.
The people you just cited all work for President Trump. And
Hmm.
so I think they're a little more reticent to say things that would fly in the face of the president's views and policies. We've seen that he will fire people who don't,
Hmm.
show loyalty to him. And so there's some of that. And so I think when it comes to public statements, you're not going to hear a lot of people kind of stick their neck out for India. But I think behind the scenes, you will see that. And again, I think the president wants to send a message to Modi.
Hmm.
I think it's he's taking some of this personally, and
Hmm.
but usually when there's been situations like that, it tends to be more temporary than permanent. And I just again, the tariffs are a really difficult roadblock, but
Hmm.
I think it's just that's all it is a roadblock that we
Hmm.
will see lifted eventually, because I think
Hmm.
there's going to be too much public pressure long term. We do too much business with India. There's
Hmm.
too many economic, social, educational, military ties with India, and he's a strategic partner long term. And so
Hmm.
I'm optimistic we'll see some change in policy in the near future.
I would love to join your optimism, Suhas, here, but I think President Donald Trump is taking not a strategic perspective here. He's taking a tactical, view here. How can the United States pivot from this attitude or this position of confrontation to collaboration? Because India and United States work on many forums, including the United Nations, including the Quad, G20. There are many forums where India and United States partner. So can we expect, because President Donald Trump is still having 3.5 years of his term left, can we expect a U-turn in President Donald Trump's policy and approach towards India?
Yeah, I don't think you'll see a U-turn,
Hmm.
barring some unforeseen event. I think you'll see a slow turn, a
Hmm.
gradual turn,
Hmm.
but it will take time, I think. But again, my reason for optimism is that
Hmm.
there's Donald Trump's view,
Hmm.
and many of his tariffs have actually been found illegal by the court system, because I,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure he has to go through Congress to get many of these tariffs approved. And
Hmm.
so I'm optimistic, because I think the sense in Congress is that we should have a strong US-India relationship.
Hmm.
And I think that the change in tone will be gradual, and it'll take some meetings. It will take some, small actions, some small sort of concessions by both sides
Hmm.
before you see that. But we've been. This is not like this is U.S.-India
Hmm.
relationship has been frayed at the
Hmm.
presidential level before. I mean, we saw um, Nixon or others, where the
Hmm.
U.S. was, the president of the United States was angry with India and trying to
Hmm.
shift policy. It's just what ends up happening is the two countries are the two largest democracies in the world. They have
Hmm.
too much in common and too many common interests
Hmm.
to have a permanent fray in relations. And
Hmm.
so, the U.S. right now, because of Donald Trump's policies, have
Hmm.
frayed relationships across the world with all of our allies.
Hmm.
And now India has joined that illustrious group of
Hmm.
allies that have been burned by Donald Trump. But like with the other allies, nothing is permanent.
Hmm.
We may not get rid of the tariffs completely, but I
Hmm.
could see him lowering them with pressure.
Hmm.
So I think I'm optimistic for that reason.
So, as you mentioned, that many people think on the Capitol Hill, especially in Congress, that this relationship not only need to be saved, but President Donald Trump, his tariffs, his policies, and especially putting pressure on U.S. allies, partners, need to be contained. Is the view being shared by many in the Republican Party as well?
You'd have to ask them. The Republicans I talk to are committed to the relationship and are concerned about the president's actions and tariffs. They're not saying it publicly, though, because they're in the same boat. They're sometimes afraid to cross the president publicly, but privately, their actions show that they support the relationship. But it's growing. There's a growing anti-India sentiment in the Republican Party and anti-Indian American in the Republican Party as well. You see that we have 6 members of Congress that are of Indian American origin. They're all Democrats, and there's a reason for that. When the Indian Americans run as Republicans, they don't do very well. There's just the Republican Party right now. They have, Nikki Haley and Kash Patel. Certainly at that level, they do have leaders, but generally, though, they have not sort of put people like me in Congress on the Republican side, and I think that's not a coincidence. When I look at the attacks I get from Republicans, I see an anti-India sentiment, certainly, and so I'm expecting that it's going to be tougher for the Republican Party to show unity around the U.S.-India relationship, given Trump's actions, as well as some of the things they're hearing from their far-right base. But there's still enough Republicans who are committed to the relationship where I'm not concerned long-term about bipartisanship.
Okay, so let's hope that the sanity will prevail. Let the people, those who think that the strategic partnership between India and the United States is more important than the whims and fancies of President Donald Trump, stand up and speak, especially in the Capitol Hill and in the U.S. intelligentsia. They stand up and speak for this relationship. Thank you very much, Suhas, for giving us time and sharing all your perspective and thoughts with our viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.